everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 99.6 The Howl, the off-season sessions. And that's it, boys and girls. Game 7, conference final, double OT, and the Pittsburgh Penguins manage to repeat and go back to the Stanley Cup final. Ottawa played great, but too much for the Senators to handle. Yeah, it was a great game. Kunitz coming out of the woodwork, scoring 2 goals. He hasn't scored a goal in 33 games dating back to February of this year. And it just brought back so many memories of Kunitz and Crosby hooking up in the regular season and playoffs. Just reminds you of how dominant they were and how hard Kunitz fell. But, he got his game when it mattered most. And I'd like to mention Crosby was kind of unnoticeable that whole game 7 until he set up Kunitz for that goal. Maybe he's playing with an injury. I know he was playing with Kunitz and Sheary, which are normally fourth liners. So I don't even know if Crosby was on the fourth line or they promoted Sheary and Kunitz to the top line. Mike Sullivan is such a good coach at adapting to situations. He's not afraid to juggle the lines. He's not like a Barry Trotz who kept the same lines the whole series against Toronto and Pittsburgh. He tried to juggle Ovechkin the third line, but it just didn't work out. But Mike Sullivan adapting, he had different lineups in the Columbus series, in the Capitals series, and even against Ottawa. Amongst all those injuries, Sullivan had to juggle the lines up and still managed to eke out a win. Mike Sullivan has never lost NHL playoff series. They're 7-0, going for 8-0, and to repeat the Stanley Cup. Let's talk about injuries more. The Ducks were the most injured team out of the Final Four. I got a list here. Just goes on and on. Let's read it out. Patrick Eaves, Raquel, Logan Shaw, Nate Thompson, and Gibson missed half of Game 5 and all of Game 6. You can't win with Jonathan Bernier in net. He was laying in some weak goals. There was one game where Nashville had like a half or a third of the shots compared to the Ducks. The Ducks were outshooting them outshooting them like 40-17 or something. And Predators still won because Bernier was in net. Terrible save percentage. But yeah, Gibson missed half of Game 5 and all of Game 6 with a hamstring. Players who played in the series that were playing injured, torn MCLs, and Lindholm and Vatanen in like 5 months of surgery. So Lindholm, Vatanen, Bieksa, and Bull playing with very, very hard injuries. I'm surprised they even played. And were somewhat effective. Bieksa looked really good that series. Predators, Ryan Johansson is missing the rest of the playoffs. Couple that with Fisher and Fiala. So Pittsburgh's offense is coming from unlikely sources. You got Sisson scoring a hat trick in Game 6 to eliminate the Ducks. Watson is scoring big goals. Auberg scoring big goals. And the big guys, Forsberg and Neal, they need to step it up if they want to beat Pittsburgh. And now also Arvidsson just continue playing the way he's playing. Pittsburgh, they had a couple injuries, more depth injuries aside from Letang, who's missing the whole playoffs. But Hornquist missed, I think, 3 games against the Senators. Schultz was missing for most of this series. Came back in Game 7, scored the second goal for the Pens, putting up 2-1. Kuhnhackl, Raw Riddell missed a couple games. And Russ and Sheary, good depth guys for the Pens, missed a couple games, but they played in Game 7. Russ had a couple great chances. And like I said, Sheary was playing with Crosby. Didn't do much, but he was on the ice for both Kunitz goals. So yeah, it was an entertaining conference final, both conferences. In the final, you got Predators and the Penguins, gold versus gold, like I said in my previous video. I think if the Preds could get offense without Ryan Johansson, Fisher, they could push it to the Pens because Rene's playing unbelievable, and they got an amazing defensive core compared to Pittsburgh. I mean, if you're looking at Pittsburgh defensive lineup, you got Trevor Daley, you got Dumoulin, Mata, Hainsey, Strite. I mean, and Schultz. Schultz is playing above his ceiling, but you just can't win a championship with that defense, and they're relying on their big guys of Crosby, Malkin, Kessel, and hopefully Horquist comes back to take them out of the weeds. So, but like I said, Pittsburgh has been playing amazing goalies this whole playoffs. They had Bobrovsky, who's a Vezina candidate. They had Holtby, and they had Anderson, who played amazing the whole playoff. And now they got Rene, so maybe they could solve him. My prediction, if you look at the past Stanley Cup finals, you always have that one constant team, and then you got the random teams making it to the final for the first time or first time in a long time. Last year was the Sharks, then you had Tampa Bay, Rangers, and they couldn't get it done. It was always the Hawks, the Kings, Pittsburgh winning. So Nashville is a new blood in the Stanley Cup final, and I think they'll face the same fate as those teams that I mentioned, and Pittsburgh will take the Stanley Cup and repeat. Just too well coached, and I think Nashville's not as deep enough to survive those big injuries of Ryan Johansson and Mike Fisher. Even though they beat the Ducks were equally, or if not more, decimated than the Predators, and that's how they eked out a victory. On paper, all injuries aside, Ducks should have won that series, but man, those injuries are tough to swallow. So yeah, I'm sure Gary Bettman and the NHL is happy that they got Pittsburgh in the final instead of Ottawa. More ratings and more of a buzz with Crosby and Malkin in the Cup final. To talk about the Memorial Cup, Erie Otters setting records. The first team to score 12 goals in a game, and Dylan Strome is the first player to score 7 points in one game. He had 4 goals, 3 assists against St. John's Sea Dogs. Unfortunately, the next game, the Otters fell to the Windsor Spitfires. So Windsor's in the final, and Erie has to play St. John's again tonight in the semifinal. So hopefully Dylan Strome and company eke out a win tonight and go into the finals against Windsor on Sunday. Just so happy that Dylan Strome is feeling success with the OHL championship. If he could get the Memorial Cup championship, that's more confidence added to him when he comes into training camp. Equally, OEL and Sweden won the World Championship, so that's OEL's first championship in his professional career, I would think. Just it's good to get a winning vibe around the players now. You got Mike Smith winning gold, winning the World Championship last year. Now you got OEL with a championship. You got Dylan Strome with a championship. Domi and Dvorak last year won the OHL championship, and I think they won the Memorial Cup as well. So that's a good breed of winners. And we'll see who the Coyotes draft in a couple weeks. I also want to mention a couple hirings. Craig Cunningham, who had his leg amputated, got promoted to a pro scout with the Coyotes. Great gesture for the Coyotes. And also Mike Sullivan getting promoted to assistant GM for the Coyotes and general manager for Tucson Roadrunners. So a couple former NHL players in the front office for the Coyotes. Maybe in the future we'll see Shane Doan, wearing a suit and tie for the Desert Dogs. That's it for me. Thank you for watching. Probably do another video after the Cup final and the expansion draft and the NHL draft. I'll be in Chicago for the NHL draft, so that's exciting. And I'll get you guys caught up to speed on the expansion draft and what it means for the Arizona Coyotes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support.